This is CBC Vancouver News.
This is the most difficult day of my life.
More tragedy in BC's backcountry. 3 people are killed in an avalanche, 4 seriously hurt.
It would have been our accident.
And a sobering close call.
And we're all shook because it's so sudden.
Goodbye, Nordstrom. The high-end U.S. fashion retailer is leaving Canada, and with it, thousands of jobs. And faded to black. A popular music festival in Surrey will not go ahead this summer. Good evening, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. There is deep sadness in eastern BC near Invermere after yesterday's deadly avalanche. The slide killed 3 people and left 4 others badly hurt. Aaron Collins has more on the grief and a very close call for another group.
The majestic beauty of the Rockies. Skiers from around the world drawn to ski hills here. But for those looking for better snow, the backcountry is often the answer.
It was a one-time chance, and we decided to do it now.
But their heli-skiing trip scheduled for today canceled at the last minute.
Good luck for us that we have not arrived one day earlier to do our trip. Then it would have been our accident.
9 skiers and a guide took off with the same company yesterday, one that's been flying here since the 70s. This trip ending in tragedy.
Again, this is the most difficult day of my life.
The group's ski day ended just after noon, an avalanche killing 3 in the party.
It is impossible to put into words the sorrow that we feel and the sadness that is shared by our guests, their families, and all of our staff.
4 other skiers were injured, flown here to this hospital in nearby Invermere.
The community of Invermere, it's a little on the quiet side today, and people are, I think, in shock at what's happened.
Beautiful as they are, these peaks can also be deadly. Warm weather and a weak snowpack making this avalanche season treacherous.
This has been a horrific avalanche season for British Columbia. So for people who are thinking about going into the backcountry, please be extremely cautious.
A warning to be heeded. 12 people have already died in avalanches in BC mountains this year. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Invermere, BC.
A nervous flight for some passengers and crew in BC earlier today. WestJet says a plane was forced to make an emergency landing in Kelowna because of a mechanical issue. It was traveling from Kamloops to Kelowna when it was diverted. Airport staff say the issue was an engine out, which is when an aircraft loses power in one engine but can still fly with the other working engine. Staff also say despite initial reports the engine was not on fire when the plane touched down, no one was reported injured. Thousands of Canadian retail workers will soon be out of jobs after a major U.S. chain announced it's leaving. Nordstrom is closing all 13 of its stores in this country, saying they've lost money every year since they opened in 2014. That includes an outlet in Langley and its massive shop here in downtown Vancouver. That opened to great fanfare in the space once occupied by Eaton's and Sears. But in court filings, the company says it's had to prop up its Canadian stores to the tune of almost $800 million. It blames high costs, a lofty U.S. dollar, flat sales, COVID, and, quote, lack of brand awareness. CEO Eric Nordstrom reportedly told a conference call that Canadian employees would be treated with fairness and respect, and a trust will be set up to help them as stores close. Almost 2,500 people across the country will be out of work.
Everybody found out the news today. Some people by email, some people by the other people talk about that, and we're all shook because it's so sudden.
No, really?
Yeah.
Oh heavens.
Yeah, you look shocked to hear this.
I'm terribly shocked.
It's a shame because it's a big building. It's my favorite hangout place. I love the coffee, and I've made friends with all the associates. So I'm really, it's really sad. I wish they wouldn't.
To be honest, I never shop in this kind of shops. So for me, it's I don't care.
Nice place. I didn't know that was happening. I thought they were doing pretty well.
The company's Canadian website was to shut down today as well. Any orders placed online before today will be filled. The stores are set to close by the end of June. One retail expert say it's hard to think what may move into that 230,000 square foot space downtown.
I don't think if we were inventing something in the retail landscape today from scratch, we'd come up with the idea of sort of one of these urban multi-floor flagship department stores with all these different products. But in their time and place, they were incredibly innovative.
Cadillac Fairview, which runs Pacific Centre, where Nordstrom is, has not yet responded to CBC News' questions. RCMP are trying to figure out what caused a deadly multi-vehicle crash on Highway 5 north of Kamloops. Mounties say 2 of the 3 victims are new to Canada from Afghanistan. It happened yesterday morning. A large pickup truck was hauling a trailer northbound when it was hit by a smaller truck heading south. The small truck then hit an SUV. 3 of the passengers in the SUV were killed. 2 others were taken to hospital with serious injuries. Today, Premier David Eby offered condolences to the survivors, their family, and the community.
This is a new arrival family from Afghanistan, so the layers of tragedy are profound for British Columbians, for them, for their friends, for the people who care about them, and for all of us. Our thoughts go out to them, family members in hospital right now, and thank you to the healthcare professionals supporting them.
The driver of the smaller truck was also taken to hospital. Mounties say they were not seriously hurt. Meanwhile, a Chilliwack man has been handed a 5-year prison sentence for manslaughter after killing his partner in 2019. Shane Travis Hughes was arrested and charged in the death of Christine Denham after she was shot in her home. He was initially charged with second-degree murder but pleaded guilty to a lesser charge. Domestic violence advocates say the 5-year sentence sends a harmful message.
Many women all across British Columbia are right now living in relationships and living in fear, and seeing this kind of sentence. It really does create a kind of chilling effect ultimately that can potentially create a situation where victims could lose hope.
Hughes has just over 2.5 years left on his sentence since he started serving time in pretrial custody. He is also banned from ever owning guns. BC's Premier has revealed more details on the province's investments in mental health support as part of the budget. More treatment beds are coming as it grapples with an increasing number of toxic drug deaths. As John Hernandez reports, the government has also pledged greater transparency when it comes to treatment wait times.
When people ask for help, when they're struggling with mental health and addiction challenges, there needs to be help available.
BC's Premier calls it a historic investment, more than $1 billion into mental health services, with the goal of getting more patients into treatment centres.
This includes 100 new substance use and treatment beds for adults, which will be available in communities across the province. Another 95 beds as part of a new Road to Recovery model of seamless care.
The pledge included in the 2023 budget comes as BC grapples with a toxic drug crisis that claimed more than 2,000 lives last year, with many patients waiting months to get into treatment beds.
Our goal, obviously, is to shrink those wait times, in some cases to zero.
A promise that has caught the attention of advocates who know just how hard it can be to get help.
The challenge is accessing services, whether that be through safer supply or addiction treatment. And if this announcement does shorten those wait times, then, it's a good first step.
A first step that those on the front lines say won't meet the surging demand, but can still make a big difference.
Just because demand outstrips supply, that doesn't mean we can't stop building. We have to keep moving towards making sure that that right care is available for people when they're ready.
The budget will also fund 4 new recovery sites with aftercare, and more than $100 million is earmarked for Indigenous-led treatment. Still, concern investments don't go far enough in addressing the need for safer supply.
There's many times that people have setbacks, and so using that illicit drug supply puts them at further risk, and so we just have to do a better job at supporting all pathways.
The province says improved access to safe supply will also come this year as it attempts to rein in an historic health crisis. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Home sales on the Lower Mainland are still in a slump. That's in the latest data from the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. New numbers show sales for February totaled just over 1,800. That is down roughly 3,400 homes sold in the same month last year. The board says the sales figures reflected a continued reluctance from prospective home sellers to list their properties, and that's pushed sales well below the historical average. Last month's sales are roughly 33% below the 10-year February sales average. Vancouver City Council has now voted to end the city's policy requiring all employees and contractors to be paid the living wage rate. That's about $24 an hour. Exact details on the vote are not known, as it was done behind closed doors. In a statement, the city writes that the living wage rate is hard to administer because it is calculated annually and fluctuates every year. It also writes that council decided to implement what it calls a, quote, fair wage approach based on a rolling 5-year average of the living wage. The city says that will, quote, smooth out annual fluctuations. The Commissioner of Canada Elections is launching its own investigation into allegations of Chinese interference in federal elections. Some of that alleged interference is connected to ridings here in BC. As Michelle Gassoub reports, Chinese Canadians are raising concern over Beijing's involvement, but they're also worried about a backlash against the Chinese diaspora.
The question of whether China interfered in Canada's federal elections plaguing the Prime Minister on his trip to BC.
The greatest targets of foreign interference are diaspora communities themselves. The Chinese government goes after Chinese citizens and Chinese parliamentarians.
Former Conservative MP Kenny Chiu lost his seat in Steveston, Richmond East in 2021. Chiu says he was targeted by interference in the form of false claims circulated on the Chinese messaging app WeChat. The Globe and Mail reported China's former consul general in Vancouver boasted about helping to defeat him.
Many of my constituents rely on informations and connections via this app called WeChat. And imagine if you hear that your MP, should he form part of a government, would put this ad and endanger.
A panel of top civil servants concluded that attempts to interfere with the 2021 election did not affect the results. And a redacted report assessing that panel's work said there are risks that concerns about foreign interference from a particular country can result in resentment and backlash against members of these communities, and that strategies to counter foreign interference need to guard against marginalizing diaspora communities.
The impact of an announcement of a threat of interference in the middle of an election campaign could be difficult to measure, and we have to make sure we're getting it right.
Chinese Canadian is not China.
The longtime commentator Gabriel Yu says the Chinese Canadian community is extremely politically diverse and would largely welcome an inquiry.
By not doing that, it would actually create a much worse atmosphere when Chinese Canadian would be suspected, and I think this is the wrong path. And today's society, I think we should actually be more transparent.
Today, the Commissioner of Canada Elections said her office has launched its own independent investigation into the last 2 federal elections, calling the circumstances exceptional. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Since 2015, the Faded in the Park Festival has filled Surrey's Holland Park with the latest electronic, dance, and hip-hop music. But not this summer. Organizers released a statement earlier tonight saying the festival, set for June 23rd and 24th, is cancelled. It says the decision was not made lightly, but the event was facing, quote, difficulties. It didn't elaborate yet. Jack Harlow and Odessa were this year's headliners. The statement says full refunds are being processed automatically. As for the future of Faded, organizers say it's on pause as they plan to see what's next. After more than a year without a deal, the very public battle over a new contract for Canada's women's national soccer team has been settled, at least for now. Canada Soccer and team players say an interim funding agreement has been reached for 2022 to cover the past year when they were without a contract. It mirrors a similar deal with the men's national team, which includes per-game incentives and results-based compensation. The women are still seeking a permanent deal featuring pay equity with the men's players.
You know, the men are also without a collective bargaining agreement, and they have to come to a deal with this on a CBA with Canada Soccer. But in terms of the pay equity, it's essentially all 3 sides have to come to terms with that both the men and the women's teams and the Canada Soccer Association. So.
Canada Soccer says new collective bargaining agreements for both the men's and women's teams are being negotiated. Limiting how much time teens spend online. TikTok is doing that, but will it actually work? We'll have more on that after this. Hello to everyone watching our commercial-free live stream tonight. Thanks for being here. A pair of seniors in Ottawa is headed to the pool to help save lives. They recently got recertified so they can give back to the community during a lifeguard shortage.
Rumor has it you're the oldest lifeguard in Ontario.
That's what I hear.
And the Lifeguard Society thinks maybe even Canada.
Oh, that would be interesting to find out. I'm 80 years of age, 81 in March the 10th. Thought, well, it would be nice to become a lifesaver again. I was in between jobs and that sort of thing, and lifeguarding came up, and I took it on part-time, particularly here at the Sportsplex. One of the requirements is that you go down the 5 meters and pick up a 20-pound brick. I actually had reservations of whether I could do that, but actually on my first go, I actually did it, and I surprised myself.
How was that?
It was fun. I first trained to be a lifeguard in the early 1970s. In between, I became a teacher, and I taught for 32 and a half years. And then I retired, and I was looking for something to do. I got into coaching of swimming, and then through the city, I became a lifeguard. It was difficult at first because some of the techniques are very much changed, like they're better, more efficient, safer. So I had to kind of relearn those, but a lot of it did come back. I'd heard through a lot of friends and family about lifeguard shortages, on the news, and I realized that a lot of the programming was being cut back. And I thought, it's a way I can kind of give back to the community, and I can help others who share a love of aquatics.
You can do this at any age.
Okay.
If I can do it at 80, I'm sure I should be able to do it when I'm 100, I hope.
Okay.
Instagram is expanding a new age verification method in Canada using artificial intelligence. As of today, there are 2 new ways to prove you are 18 or older. You can get 3 adult friends to vouch for you, or you can upload a video that will get run through an age estimating program. The company says knowing how old its users are allows it to create age-appropriate experiences for teenagers who are on the app. Meanwhile, TikTok is introducing daily 60-minute screen time limits for kids and teens. There's a catch, though. Parents can extend the cap for children under the age of 13 by putting in a password, and users who are 13 to 17 can do so on their own. A date for the launch has not yet been announced, but TikTok says this will become a default feature in the coming weeks. The impact of social media on the development of children and teens is a growing concern for parents and guardians. So will any of these tools do anything? For Insight, earlier tonight, our Anita Bath spoke with Jesse Miller, a social media consultant.
Jesse, what's the point of a 60-minute cap on screen time with TikTok if a teen can simply get rid of it?
Well, a couple of things need to stand out to me are that we look at parents and what they believe screen time values to be. And so if TikTok can make parents feel more comfortable about how their kids are using it and then seeing the kids circle back asking for more, then the home value can be somewhat reflected. But the hard part here is about age gating. The kids can put in any age. They don't really have any verification process to that. So it is about parents choosing how they set their kids' accounts up, how they oversee that, and then how they choose to participate with their children.
Now, we're seeing way more screen time addiction. What are the dangers of that with kids?
Yeah, a couple of points. In 2019, we did identify scientifically that screen time addiction wasn't necessarily about being good or bad. It was about how we used it. Was it pro-social? Was it participatory? And so we can mitigate some of the concerns about kids and mental health and the fears around screen time by looking at how they use the screens for learning, how they use it for engagement. And if we learned anything from the pandemic, screens are somewhat necessary when it comes to work from home, learn from home. But the idea of just scrolling through and just kind of being on it aimlessly, that's where we have to look at whether or not there are mental health impacts for a young person when they're trying to avoid something, when they're trying to engage in a community. And so that oversight piece that TikTok is trying to teach parents here is that with their family pairing, you can actually get good family engagement. You can share videos, you can engage together and talk about the media influences. But anybody, no matter their age, is somewhat prone to being on any social media platform and just going through because you're trying to avoid participating in a space that maybe requires a bit of your presence.
There's a live shot of Cambie Street in City Hall. Nice to see the sun across the south coast today. Was a bit crisp, though. Bit of a change for the weekend, though. Kuljeet will have your BC-wide weather forecast right after this.
It was a street party held in honor of the IOC, spanning 3 city blocks. It lasted for 5 hours and attracted tens of thousands of people.
We think the Olympics should be in Vancouver, bottom line.
But the 18 visiting members only caught a glimpse of it as they drove by. Instead, the group traveled from one venue to the next, part of a 4-day tour to judge if Vancouver has what it takes to host the Games. Team leader Gerhard Heiberg chose his words carefully when describing his first impressions.
Very, very nice. If we can get the same weather tomorrow, which we had yesterday, it would be even better.
Bid organizers are calling it the Sea to Sky Games, hoping to sell the IOC on Vancouver's diverse culture and landscape. But there are potential roadblocks. The IOC has already expressed concerns over this winding stretch of highway that links Vancouver and Whistler. There's already a $600 million improvement plan that will go ahead regardless.
If we're fortunate enough to be granted the Games, then that program will start sooner rather than later.
Little snow in the mountains could also be a problem. Still, bid organizers say so far, so good.
It's going great. Yeah? Yeah, it's fun.
The bid committee says public support is no longer an issue. The IOC is happy with the results of a plebiscite where 64% of those who cast ballots said they support the Games. It also did its own survey. Those results are expected soon. But despite the plebiscite results, there are still some who don't want the Games. One group crashed the street party.
IOC go home! IOC go home! We want the Games! We want the Games!
The IOC evaluation team will continue its tour of Vancouver and Whistler. The Prime Minister will be in town later this week to throw his support and more money behind the bid. All of this will end up in the IOC's final report due in May. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Vancouver.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
On March 29th, join Leanne Young at the Zilly Cares Conversation on Care, a mental health fundraiser with special guests Dr. Gabor Mate and Dr. Mariam Zainadin. Get your tickets at zillycare.com. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver inbox and keep connected with us.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace, installing the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
Time for a BC-wide weather forecast now. Johanna's away tonight, so Kuljeet Kaila is here. Kuljeet, bit of a nice sunny day, bit of a break.
We had a drier than usual day today. Lots of sunshine throughout the day. We did see some clouds this afternoon. And overnight Friday into Saturday, we do have an 80% chance of more snow mixed with rain. We'll get about 10 to 15 millimeters by Saturday morning, and then things will start to clear up for the rest of the weekend. We may see some sunshine, hopefully on Sunday and early into next week. We'll get to the 7-day forecast here quite soon. This is what conditions are going to end up like by the end of Saturday. We will be returning to just rain. The mixed flurries will have stopped by then, hopefully. 10 to 15 millimeters. It will be quite wet for that day, but things will dry up quite nicely across the province tomorrow. Wet conditions along the coast. Temperatures are actually 2 to 3 degrees lower, so it is much colder as well. 5 degrees in Prince Rupert, -5 in Dease Lake, and snowing with a little bit of sun tomorrow. Prince George will see temperatures of -1, a mix of snow with cloud and sunshine. Mostly cloudy in Williams Lake, 2 degrees, more sunshine as we make our way towards Cranbrook. 1 degree there, 4 degrees in Kelowna for tomorrow. Some notes for today. Today's high was 5 degrees. The average around this time of year is 9, so it is much colder. Our low not too far off. Today's low 1 degree. It is going to get windy again this evening, about 60 kilometers an hour by the water. Humidity dropped by about 20% from yesterday. Today it is 67%. Our long range forecast pans out like this. Again, overnight rain Friday into Saturday. 70% chance of very light rain for Saturday and hopefully some sunshine by Monday, and on Sunday rather. Monday we may see a 40% chance of some more flurries, but a very small chance of that happening, returning to mostly sunny conditions for the rest of early next week. So not looking too bad. A couple of wet spots to get through and then some sunshine. So it will start to feel more like spring. Dan?
What a delightful thing. Thank you, Kuljeet. Finally tonight, a friendly Vancouver bus driver has become a bit of a viral star after he made a video explaining to a passenger's boss why she could not make it to work.
Good morning. My name is Graham and I'm the bus driver. I'm with Ying. We are at a big snowfall. No joke, no lie. The buses are stuck. The buses are ordered not to move. Just to let you know what's going on this morning. And just to verify, there's the message we received on the computer telling us to pull over and wait for the snowplows. So if she's late for work, I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do. There's absolutely nothing we can do. We're all stuck. So hopefully this explains why she may not come in today, but stuff happens. Sorry.
Best absent note ever. Ying Zhu was on the way to work yesterday around 7:30 on the number 16. It stopped after it was asked to pull over and wait for plows. That's when the driver named Graham offered to record a video for Zhu to send to her boss. She tells CBC News in an email she really wanted to thank Graham for his friendly attitude and for the message. Better than a doctor's note. That's your late news for Thursday. Thank you for joining us tonight. For news at any hour, check our website, cbc.ca/BC. Your next local news is on the early edition on CBC Radio 1. That starts tomorrow morning at 5 a.m. And I will be here for your 6 p.m. news tomorrow night, so please join us then as well. Good night.